Welcome back to Black Bear Forge. It has been a busy week in the shop here. I have been working on 2 or 3 different orders of hinges. I've been working on axes and adzes. All sorts of stuff getting done around here. I'm pretty much back into full production mode these days. But I thought we would take a little bit of time to get back to our iron butterfly project, which would also be a good holiday gift project, so it kind of satisfies both of those needs since it is the holiday season coming up. Today we need to make a little stand so that our butterfly looks like he's in flight, and it'll be kind of a viney looking stand, a little bit freeform, 2 or 3, 4 leaves on it so it looks sort of like a plant. Nothing real fancy. We're going to keep it very basic. Typically, I think I would forge weld the leaves on something like this, but I think today I would prefer to go ahead and use the torch, and you could use a MIG welder or TIG weld or something like that if you wanted to, just to keep this as basic as possible for people that haven't developed their forge welding skills yet. Now, just as a reminder, this project is out of the book, The Secrets of the Forge, and we're producing it here with permission from the publisher. The base in the book calls for 1/4-inch copper rod to make the base. Unfortunately, I don't have any copper rod in the shop, so I think I'm going to go ahead and use mild steel, and I'm actually going to use some salvage material. I've got a bunch of these bolts that came from those big cable spools, big wooden spools. These are probably more like 5/16. They're a little big, but we'll be able to make leaves out of the ends of some of these, and then one of them will become the stand for the butterfly. Let's start with a simple leaf. Now these were big bolts, so I've got to cut the end off that's threaded. I'll try to cut that off and leave a kind of a square diamond point on it if I can. That'll just make life a little easier. I'll do that to all 3 of the pieces I've got for leaves. Now I just want to draw a short taper on the end of the bar, a little square point. That's really all we're after for each leaf. These leaves are simple enough. I think we'll just show forging 3 of them right in a row here. For the next step, I want to create a shoulder for the stem to come off of for the leaf. And I think the best way to do this would be with this fullering jig. And the leaves are just up to you if you've got a way you like to make leaves. I'm going to leave about 1 inch from the point. Create a nice little square shoulder. And then I'm going to round it up. That just creates a place for a stem that I can then draw out. I'll be real careful here. If this gets too cold, it's real easy to stress fracture this right at the shoulder. So be careful doing that. Now if you don't have a fullering jig like that, you could use a spring fuller if it's got a little flat spot there. Same sort of effect. I think the fullering jig is easier to get everything into, but spring fullers are easy to make. I need to get that hot again. And it might be worth making a fullering a little spring folder just for this project, if you don't have any other alternatives. And of course you could do it all right here at the edge of the anvil. You don't have to finish the stem right now. You just want to establish the shoulder. You could even establish the shoulder with a little spring folder under the treadle hammer. That really went off center. I was a little twisted here, but we can fix that. So we can fix that as long as we leave it at a good high heat. We can get in there and clean that up. These leaves will be simple enough that if we do break a stem off, it just won't matter. It's pretty quick to make another one. So that's really all we want with all three of the leaves. That one looks pretty good. And that one looks pretty good. The next thing we want to do is stand the leaf up so that one of the diamond edges is up, and that gives us little sharp edges at the front. And just start flattening it with the face of the hammer, then we'll go to the peen. It goes a lot faster if you don't let it cool down while you're talking. So at the corner up, then go to the peen and spread the leaf out. We'll do the same thing to all three of them. Don't let them get too cold or you stand a chance of breaking the stem off. Now I like to put some little veins in my leaves, and the treadle hammer is the ideal place for this. This just makes this look much more leaf-like, I think. But if you don't have a treadle hammer, you can do this with a chisel at the anvil. Almost as easy. And of course you're free to make the leaves however you like to make leaves. This is just the way I like to make them. One more. Now this can get a little bit cold because you're not really stressing that space between the leaf and the stem. You can also make this center vein curve a little bit if you want to, or if you start it off center. So now all three of our leaves have been shaped. They're still a little bit on the flat side in my opinion. So I typically use a V-swedge and a little cross peen hammer and just create some three-dimensional effect in the leaf there. You could also use a more purpose-made veining tool. Although this one doesn't really fit this anvil. It was made for a different anvil. Or you could use a taller leaf stake to do the same thing. Lots of different approaches to the same problem. These could be a little bit hotter. I've left them in the forge with the fire off here. But in any case, you see what's happening here. So now we want to cut these off, leaving an inch or so of the unfinished stem. Try not to cut them off and shoot them across the room. You'll have to go find them. So that's a leaf cut off. Now we'll turn it around and do the stem. Now we just need to draw out the stems to something like 3/16 or maybe an 1/8 inch round. So draw out square, then octagon. They cool off. We've already done square and octagon. Now we can round it up. It doesn't hurt to put just a little bit of a taper at the end because we're going to end up welding this to the main branch. That's really all we need to do for now. So there we have our 3 little leaves. So using a bit of that same material, the big bolts from the cable spools, we're going to go ahead and do the stem, the vine, the branch, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to just try to make this a little more organic, taper out the end where the butterfly will attach. Nothing very fancy, nothing very specific. Remember, this is supposed to be a plant, not some sort of an engineered or machined round bar. So I'm just going to start by drawing a long taper, but not down to a point, just kind of a blunt taper. On one end, again, square, then octagon, and then round. I'm going to leave it a little lumpy and bumpy and uneven. And I'm going to actually come over here to the step where it's all cut up because somebody used it as a cutting plate. Just kind of work around and leave some intentional texture here. Remember, we're creating art here. And texture is sometimes the name of the game. I'm not really trying to change dimension. Again, this is just a texturing step to give it more of a natural vegetative look. And you could go so far as to make special dies for this. I'll go ahead and turn it around. We'll cut this bolt end off. As I cut this off, I'm going to try and make it a long angled cut. To make it look more like a cut off piece of a branch or something. Then it's back to just texturing. That's really all the shaping and forging that we need to do to this piece here. Now we need to give it its vine-like characteristic and make it a base that'll sit stable. So this is a reasonable thing to do right over the horn of the anvil. Basically we're going to need a more or less of a round section, although the one in the book actually has a little offset, more of an S-curve for part of it. More like that. So it's just whatever you think you want to do. And you can do a lot of this with bending forks if you'd like to. In fact, you'll probably be more precise if you do it with bending forks. And top and bottom forks in conjunction work very well together. Remember though, to make this a big enough base that it's going to be stable, you don't want this to get knocked over easily. And this is going to have to come up over the top and kind of spiral up at some point. You're just making this up as you go, but try not to make it kinky and lumpy and bumpy and things like that, or it just won't look right. You want it to look like it grew this way. And at some point you might be able to just grab it with a pair of tongs and bring it around until it looks like what you want it to. And you can always adjust this. There's nothing about this that is so specific that you can't take a torch, or even something this small you can probably even bend cold. But I think that's pretty much what we want. The butterfly will sit up here, and we'll put the leaves down in here. So we're going to let that cool, and then we will assemble the entire piece. So I'm going to go ahead and weld the leaves onto the stem with a torch. You could certainly use a MIG welder, a TIG welder, something like that. Forge welding would be an excellent way to do this, but I'm trying to make this project something that you don't need to know how to forge weld to do. So we're just going to go ahead and use the torch. Whatever works for you is fine. If you don't have any way of welding, you don't forge weld, you don't MIG, you don't TIG, you could probably find some other way to wrap the leaves, make long stems on your leaves, and wrap them around the base, maybe rivet the butterfly to the end of it. If you think about it, you can probably find a workaround that works with the skills you have, but the more skills you develop, the more options you have. Now we will adjust the way these leaves lay in here after we get this all done. I just want to make sure that I like where the butterfly sits. I think I would like to bring this up a little bit and then level out just the end of that. Remember, some of this is hot from welding, so pay attention to where you grab. It's one of the advantages of doing things with a torch. It's really easy to make these little fine adjustments. I think that's pretty good. Again, we can do some final adjusting after we're all done with it. So now we need to weld that on, which I think will work better if I turn it all upside down. So now it's really just a matter of deciding which way you want everything to point. You want it to curve this way or curve that way. It's a butterfly flying up or down or turning left or turning right. This is just sculpture at this point. And that's one of the reasons I really like using a torch for sculptural work, is it's so easy to heat just little bits up here, little bits up there, twist, turn, bend, do whatever you need to do till it all looks just right. I'm using a pair of vice grips and the vise to hold this so I can work with this and not worry too much about it falling off. But the vice grips aren't clamped in there real tight, so you still need to be kind of careful. First thing I think I want to do is I do want to level the butterfly out. I got that a little off. Trying to balance the stem up on top of the butterfly. I didn't really have a good look at the angle. But this should be easy to just heat the stem up. And I think I want them to be flying up a little bit more. And I think I want this leaf to kind of wrap around the bottom. Make sure you don't burn through the leaves. I should say burn through the stems. These will bend where they're hot and where they're thin. So just pay attention to where it wants to bend. I put a little gentle pressure on and just heat until it starts to go the direction I'm pulling. You see what happens, and then you might heat somewhere different. I think that's pretty much done as far as this goes. Time for some light wire brushing. Remember, some of this is hot, and leather gloves don't protect you real well, so don't get carried away here. The last thing I'm going to do is a little brass brushing on the wings. And this is a solid brass or bronze brush, not the brass plated ones. Somebody always comments about that when I talk about this. Oh, you got to make sure you don't use the brass plated ones. Well, when I say brass, I mean brass. If I meant brass plated, I'd say brass plated. But you want to heat this up not quite glowing, or let it start to glow and then let it cool back down to a black heat. You're not trying to melt the brass onto the sculpture here. You're trying to just rub off a little bit of a surface patina. And then fairly vigorous brushing, or at least as vigorous as you can do with a piece that's supported like this. They get a little bit wiggly. And we'll do the other side. And there is our completed butterfly, except for a wax finish. So here is our completed butterfly project. It's a nice little sculptural piece, a fun little art piece. There's nothing here that has to fit something or be a precise measurement. It's all just kind of go for it and make it sculptural, do what you want to do with it, have fun. This is art, so it looks like what you want it to look like, not necessarily what some other guy wants it to look like. Somebody had shared one of these that they had done on the Facebook group, the Black Bear Forge forum group over on Facebook, and they had polished it up a little bit and then used tempering colors to add some life and some character to it. So it had some bronzes and some blues and some purples in the wings, and that was a very nice effect. This one just has the bronze brushing, and it's very subtle. You probably won't be able to see it in the camera. Again, this project comes out of the book, Secrets of the Forge, with permission from the publisher, Artisan Ideas, for us to do some of the projects out of that book, and we will do some more projects out of that book. This was just the place I chose to start. I hope you enjoyed this project. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Love it if you hit that subscribe button. Feel free to stick around, watch some of the other videos, share the videos with your friends. If you would like to support the Black Bear Forge YouTube channel financially, there are links down in the description for both Patreon and PayPal. Those are just donations. There is no obligations. The content is free and will remain free. But in any case, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, have fun, challenge yourself, enjoy your time in the shop, but do it safely and wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next one.